Hello, my name's Andrew Thake, and I'm from Minds and Money. Delighted to be joined with us today by Roger Moss, President and Chief Executive Officer of Labrador Gold. Great to have you with us today, Roger.
Thank you, Andrew. It's great to be here.
Perhaps you can start off by telling our listeners a little bit about Labrador Gold and its properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Labrador Gold is a junior mining company based here in Canada and focused on gold exploration in the eastern part of Canada. We have four projects, one in Ontario, one in New Brunswick, and two in Newfoundland and Labrador. And up until about early 2020, we were focused on the gold mineralization and exploration in Labrador. And just in early 2020, Newfound Gold had announced a really excellent discovery on the island of Newfoundland, and that took a lot of people by surprise and caused a lot of excitement. And we were fortunate enough to be able to jump on the opportunity to acquire some claims adjacent to that discovery. And so, of course, knowing what's gone on since then, that turned out to be a really good acquisition. And that's essentially our flagship property now. It's the Kingsway property, and it's situated near Gander in Newfoundland. So from 2020 until now, we've been focusing almost entirely on that Kingsway property.
And what have your drilling and assay results been like there?
Actually, we've had some great success in the last 2 years. Obviously, with COVID, we got off to a slow start. We couldn't get on the ground right away because of COVID protocols. But when we did, the first year, 2020, was mostly grassroots exploration. We were doing prospecting, sampling, soil sampling, geophysics, and that actually led to the discovery of visible gold in a quartz vein boulder that we managed to find the source of. It was actually quite close to where the boulder was found, and that became our initial drill target, and we called it Big Vein. So Big Vein is still our biggest, our best target, and we started drilling Big Vein in April of last year, and we've been drilling on the property ever since. We started off with a 10,000 meter drill program, and as we got better and better results, we managed to raise more money, and that 10,000 meter drill program is now a 100,000 meter drill program, and we're just over halfway through that. We've probably drilled about 55,000 meters in the last year or so, and the results are great. After that initial discovery at Big Vein, we've gone on, and with a combination of our grassroots exploration and follow-up drilling, we've got another 3 discoveries that we've made on the property since early last year, and we're continuing to develop more targets for drilling. And it's the thing about Kingsway, and the reason I was so excited about acquiring it after that discovery of Newfound Gold is it's on the same structure as Newfound Gold, and that's a key thing to realize about the Kingsway property. We have a 12-kilometer strike length of that structure, and 3 of the targets that we've discovered over the last 2 years have been along that structure. So it seems to be quite a prolific structure for gold mineralization, and we're pretty excited about what we have to do in the future with it.
So you've obviously got great geology there. What's the infrastructure there like?
Oh, the infrastructure couldn't be better. I mean, it's we're about 18 kilometers from the town of Gander, probably the second biggest town in Newfoundland. It's close to the Trans-Canada Highway, which is obviously the major highway that goes from St. John's all the way to Vancouver through Canada. And the property itself is accessed by forestry roads, and there's a huge network of forestry roads through the property. So we have year-round access to the property. lots of water available, being Canada, lots of lakes and ponds, and little close to, as I say, close to Gander, but also close to smaller communities where we have our accommodations and obviously electricity, and that's all there as well within reasonable distance. So yeah, it's an excellent place to work. And I also want to point out that Newfoundland and Labrador as a province is a great jurisdiction. It's very supportive of the mining industry and junior mining exploration in particular. It's really interested in getting more mines developed, and is very helpful on that file. And obviously, the Geological Survey of Newfoundland has done a phenomenal job of getting information up online, and to my mind, it's some of the best online information that we can get. So lots of great things in Newfoundland and around the Kingsway project.
Mm-hmm. So you've got fantastic geology, great infrastructure, fantastic government support. I know something that obviously all investors look at as well is the quality of the management team. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your management team?
Yeah, well, my background is essentially an exploration geologist. I've been doing it now for over 30 years, and mostly focused on gold with a little bit of copper, and essentially in many different parts of the world. I started off in South Africa and Namibia, and while in Namibia, I was involved in the discovery of the Navajo gold deposit, which it started off as a sort of 800,000 ounce gold deposit, but it grew up to over, last I heard, it was over 6 million ounces produced and in resource. So that was pretty amazing. And then from there, I came to Canada and worked down in South America for quite a while on some of the big copper and gold porphyries down there. But for the most part, I've always come back to Canada and enjoyed working in Canada. It's somewhere where I feel obviously at home, and the geology in Canada is exceptional. And I think more and more companies are looking at Canada now again and saying, well, we can go all over the world, but Canada is a great place to work. So I've and in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador, Labrador Gold has been working there since 2017. So we're 5 years into working both in Labrador at our Hopedale project and since 2020 at Kingsway. So yeah, my experience has been very much in terms of the exploration side, but also senior management of many of these companies that I was working with down in South America and here in Canada. So there's that. Our project manager out in Newfoundland has actually got a lot of experience in the area where the Kingsway project is. He was actually involved with Noranda, who was the company that found a lot of the gold occurrences in the district back in the 1980s, and he's been following that and working in the area ever since. And we're really fortunate to have him spearheading the work on the ground in Newfoundland.
And we've obviously sort of spent a lot of this interview talking about the opportunity at Kingsway, but would you also like to briefly touch upon the other three projects that you've got as well, where the opportunity there might kind of lie in the future?
Yeah, so last year we staked some ground in New Brunswick, and we staked almost an entire belt of rocks that we felt was very similar to what we see in Newfoundland at Kingsway. And so we haven't done a lot of work there yet. We just completed an airborne geophysical survey, so we're waiting for the results of that. And once we get that, we'll have a better idea how to move forward there. But we do believe that it's a very similar structural scenario as what we see in the central part of Newfoundland. So that'll be interesting to see that. Hopedale, we have a crew up at Hopedale, which is up in Labrador right now. And that's a really interesting project because those licenses that we have up there cover the large part of an Archean greenstone belt. And your listeners are probably familiar with Archean greenstone belts and how prolific they can be for gold mineralization. And the interesting thing about this project in Labrador is that it hasn't really had a very good exploration or a good look for gold mineralization. There was some work done in the 1990s looking for nickel after the discovery of the big Voisey's Bay deposit to the north. But in terms of gold, it's almost virgin territory, and we're getting some really good results. And we're hoping to be able to drill up there next year if the results from this year's program are as successful as I think they're going to be. And then finally, the Borden Lake Extension project is a project that we have. It's adjacent to Goldcorp, Newmont Goldcorp's Borden mine. So there's a gold mine there. We believe it's a long strike from that mine. We haven't done much there for a couple of years, mainly because we've been focused on in Eastern Canada. But that's something that we're going to be looking at in the next year or so, time and money, if we have the time and the money to be able to do anything there. So yeah, it's a bit of a full plate. But like I said, our main focus is Kingsway because that's really where we are having success with the drill bit right now.
And what's the interest been like from investors? Maybe you can talk about who are some of your significant investors and shareholders.
Yeah, well, I think it was a bit of a crazy time last year when. So we went through 2020 and that was fairly calm. And then there was a staking rush towards the end of 2020, early 2021, and a lot more companies got involved in the area in central Newfoundland. And that really started to pick up steam. Obviously, Newfound Gold were continuing to have success on their project. We started having success with our Kingsway project. And that kind of, there was a euphoria, almost like a gold rush euphoria about central Newfoundland back sort of middle of last year. And so there was a lot of interest from investors, retail and institutional. And around that time, we had Eric Sprott, who I'm sure your listeners know. Eric invested in pretty much every junior mining company in Newfoundland, I think. And, so he wanted to get a piece of Labrador Gold as well. And Newfound Gold also took part in 2 financings with Eric that we did April and May of last year. So they're major shareholders. Palisades Goldcorp, who are also involved with Newfound Gold, is a major shareholder, probably around 8%. And Crescat Capital, a fund out of the U.S., Denver, U.S., is a major shareholder as well. So those are the 4 main shareholders. But there was lots of interest last year. That's sort of dropped off a little bit now. And unfortunately, I think some of that drop off was due to the length of time that assays were taking to come from the labs, which I'm sure you've heard about from many companies. It's a little better now, but it was really bad towards the end of last year. But I mean, we're plugging away, and one of the good things, I think, one of the advantages I think we have over some other, especially smaller junior companies, is that we have a really good cash position. We have about $23 million in the bank, based on the financings that we did last year. And so, that's our 45,000 meters planned drilling for this year and going into next year is all paid for. So we got, we've got quite a long runway of drilling that's already paid for without having to go back and raise more money and dilute our shareholders. So I think we're in a very good position in that respect.
Well, I mean, I couldn't go and agree with you more. Great cash position, a roster of investors that would be the envy of most other junior gold companies. Great sort of geology, great infrastructure, great government to be working with. Would definitely recommend to all of our listeners out there to go and check out Labrador Gold. That was Roger Moss, President and Chief Executive Officer of Labrador Gold, with Andrew Thake from Mines and Money.
Thanks, Andrew.